Hi everyone, I'm doing my next chapter of this John Maxwell, well not next chapter, but next few key points that I'm focusing on. And it's the 21 laws of leadership. So John mentions in this book that we have different generations that attract like-minded people. That's the law of magnetism. So people in their 20s will want to be with people in their 20s. People in their 30s will want to be with people in their 30s. It's just natural. You don't find teenagers wanting to hang out with the older generation. Maybe at family gatherings or things like that, yes. But there's very few things that can bring us together like music does. You'll find that when you go to concerts, music concerts, there'll be people of all generations with certain genres of music, and there'll be a wide range of audience, diverse races, genders, and that was something that Elvis Presley did very well. He had people of all ages, all races, all genders at his concerts and in his audiences. Not everybody is able to do that. When I first came to Canada, I found it odd that in human resources, they don't just have HR like we have back home. They have specialties. So they'll have teams that focus on compensation, on total rewards, on pension, on health and safety. And that's because it's so complicated here that they have to have that, because one person can't do everything. You have generalist roles where people will touch on different areas like recruiting, compensation, onboarding, but in large organizations, they'll have it broken down into different areas because there's so many rules, there's so many regulations. It's very, very complex. And then with backgrounds as well, John Maxwell says that certain people will be attracted to others in their professions, in what they do. Blue-collared workers will be attracted to blue-collared workers. White-collared workers to white-collared workers. But what do you do in a situation like this in Canada, where you have people like me who are coming in who are very highly qualified, educated, skilled workers, and they don't have jobs for us? We landed up taking out their garbage, cleaning their toilets, doing all the jobs that their people don't want to do. So that doesn't mean that because we are white-collar workers that people put us in white-collar jobs. They don't. Because as immigrants, that's the journey. It's the journey in America, it's the journey in Canada. You land up put at the bottom of the pile. The least amount of earnings, the least respect, the least they can give you, they'll give you the least that they can give you. And I'm not just saying that, I've had this experience here. It's different, like when I was in the church in South Africa or Zimbabwe, we went through that before independence and even after independence. Our families did a lot for the church, but when we needed help, nobody was there for us. And so the same thing happens here. You'll find that the Jesuits will have their Scotch tasting dinners and their big events with all the rich people. And then the likes of us, we get left out because we don't have the money to go to those things. So it's very different to how the Jesuits ran things in South Africa, how they ran things in England, because the experience there is very different. Over there, they'll have things that more build up the community. They'll have events like they'll have Halloween parties where everyone can come. Or what we used to do at Trinity House when I was with Peter Knox, we used to have fundraising events where you could cater to a large amount of people. So we would have for our students, I would organize burger nights, and we would all put money in a kitty, and that would be towards our fundraising. And we use some of that money to buy what we needed for the event. So it's very different here. It's a very class-based society. You have the very rich and you have the very poor. And the middle class, just like in many parts of the world, is falling away. So it's unfortunate because those of us who left Africa and who left communism left exactly for those reasons, because we wanted better lives, we wanted good paid jobs. We worked hard, we got our education here, we studied, and it's not going the way that we had hoped. So he even gives the example here about in the NFL, they have the Rooney Rule, which requires teams to interview at least one minority candidate for every head coaching position. And that's because of the discrimination in the US. Because people in the US and Canada, if given an option, they would rather hire, like a black person will hire a black person, a white person will hire a white person. So there's very little in terms of diversity. So they put that rule in place because sports in America is very, very competitive, but it's also very lucrative. So you'll find that their top players, their top coaches, the top teams, they get paid a lot of money. And it's not only because of their talent, it's also because of the discrimination that comes in. And also some of that is to cover the athletes because injuries can happen. And there have been injuries where people are playing rugby or they're playing whatever sport it is and they'll end up becoming debilitated, like they get a disability, or, you know, anything can happen to them. So they get paid big bucks and they get traded between the teams. So it's very different here compared to how we do our sports in Zimbabwe or in South Africa. And this notion of, like, we come here expecting that it's going to be a more equal playing ground, it's going to be a more fair playing ground, but actually it's the opposite. It's the exact opposite, because you get treated the same way that the immigrants got treated in the 60s, in the 50s, and how the blacks got treated, the same things happening to us that happened to the Indians, the blacks, the coloreds back then, the same things. So, you know, it's a bit it's a bit strange that in this day and age, because I guess when you come from my background where you've lived through the wars, you've lived through independence, you've lived through all of these kinds of things, you think, okay, I'm going to come to Canada and it's going to be much better. But it's not much better. And in fact, it's subtle, because if you're not looking, you might think, oh yeah, look at those Jesuits. They're having a nice Scotch tasting evening. And that's a nice way to raise money. But who can afford to go to that? Can you and I afford to go to it if we are on minimum wage? Can we afford to go to the Cardinals' dinners? There's only the elite can go to that. When I renew my HRPA dues, I sacrifice. I don't do it just for the sake of it. I do it because I'm getting a membership, I'm getting to go to events, I'm getting to meet people, I'm networking, and all of that is in the hopes that things will change for me and get better for me. And as they get better for me, I can also help others. That's why I do all my volunteering with the Canada-Africa initiatives. That's why I'm out there helping people. I'm not doing it just for altruistic reasons. I'm doing it because I've been discriminated against from the time I was a little girl. From the time I was a little girl, I was told, oh, you can't go and sit inside Wimpy. No, you can't go to drive-in on certain days. No, you can't sit in the front of the church. Yep, that's just the way it is. You sit at the back of the church. No, you can't serve at the altar. That's not for you. That's only for those people. Even after I got my degrees and my qualifications and I worked hard and I proved myself, it's the same thing. It's the same thing that they did to us in Rhodesia, in Zimbabwe. It's the same thing they're doing now. It's the same. Because if you don't have money to live on, if you're not able to get an income coming in, if they're isolating you, how are you going to live? Tell me. They're doing the same things to us that they did back then. Nothing has changed. Nothing. So, I mean, even now I'm connected to, because I do this Global Citizen, some of the political leaders that presented at that Global Citizen, a few of them are connected with me. So if you go on my LinkedIn and you looked at my contacts, you can see them there. I'm very honest and I'm very straightforward about how I feel. So if they don't like it, they don't like it. There's an ambassador in Australia, Ambassador Elias. He represents Zambia. He's connected with me. There's some of the prime ministers and presidents of different countries who are connected with me. So, you know, I'm grateful God has opened up those connections, but I want those connections to land up leading to good things for me and for my family and for Zimbabwe. I'm not just doing it just to say, oh yeah, you know, like, look who I'm connected with. That's not the purpose of it. So when we do our John Maxwell, we have to remember our history and our backgrounds as well. And that's why I was saying, like, when I do my November 11th was UDI. It was our independence for Rhodesia. It was the day we cut the apron strings with the Queen and the colony and all that. And they wouldn't let us go. They wouldn't let us go. Oh no, you can't do that. You can't. Why? They wanted us as a colony. That's why. Because the country was starting to come up. All races were starting to come up. Things were starting to change. And then they isolated us. And once the Cold War came in, US were like, oh, we've got to deal with this Cold War thing happening here. Just give them majority rule. And then what did they do after that? Are they there building up the country? Are they investing in Zimbabwe? Are they helping the Zimbabweans? And all these Arab nations and all that are promoting this gold mafia and all that. And even here, our political leaders, you think they don't know what's happening in the banks with the Credit Suisses and the TDs and all that. You think they don't know? They know. So that's why when we do our John Maxwell and we go out and we do transformation, we bring our history with us and what challenges we have overcome. Because believe you me, it hasn't been easy here. To get any work, not even to get work in your field, to get any work, it's very, very difficult. And if it's not your skin color, it's your accent. If it's not your accent, it's your hair. If it's not your hair, it's they don't like how you dress. Or if it's not how you dress, it's something else. I mean, it just gets to a point where it's like, you know what? At least I wore clothes and I came to work. Next time I should come naked, maybe then you'll stop complaining. But people can come to work drunk, high on marijuana and all that, and no, just cover it up, just leave it. Just show some compassion for them. And what about us? Who shows us that compassion? So we have good values, we work hard, we're educated, we're ethical. We also want things to change for us. We also want things to get better for us. We're not just bringing these values into the organization for the sake of it. We want things to change for us. We also want to be able to buy those cars, buy those houses, travel, earn the good life and the sweet life. We left a lot behind to come to these countries, and it wasn't easy. I came with nothing but the suitcase. I came with the suitcase from England and the little money that I saved when I was there. I invested that in my education. And all I got in return was what I'm getting now. Menial jobs, being let go without notice in the name of risk management, not even allowed to say goodbye to the managers. I mean, it's ridiculous how you get treated when you come here. It really is. And most of us are saying, you know what, it's time things changed. Because we didn't come to your countries for you to treat us badly, to mistreat us, to tell us be grateful for the little you have. When you come to our countries, we don't treat you that way. You come into the countries, you rape the countries, you pillage the lands, you take all the gold, the diamonds, everything to England and to other places here, to Canada. And then you tell us be grateful for the little you have. How about you start being grateful that we are here and we're contributing and we're helping and we have good values? How about you appreciate our history? That would be nice for a change. Sometimes here they do have, when they have these Remembrance Day, they'll honor some of the foreign armies. Sometimes they do have it for the Rhodesian Light Infantry. I've seen that. Not in Toronto, but in other places. And they also have flag raising days downtown if you go to the government buildings. So they do it in that way. But for us, that's not enough. We want to see our lives change with good paying jobs. We want to see us respected in the workplace. We want to see accommodation for our Christian values. When we need Good Friday off and Easter off and all of these things, we want to see that accommodation made. We want to see us being paid living wages so that we can also buy homes and food and travel and do all the things that the whites in this country are doing. Because it's hard for everybody now. Now there's even, you see a lot of whites here in Canada on the street begging. You see them, homeless people, tent encampments, all the policies they put in place all backfired. All the drugs and everything that they're selling like popcorn, it all backfired because that's their values. Again, it's evil values because it's in the name of compassion. They were saying in the name of compassion we should sell it because if we don't sell it to them and they're drug addicts, then you're going to lose more lives. Well, who heard of such stupidity? Because it backfired because the exact opposite happened. And then those people lost jobs, they couldn't get houses. I did nothing wrong, and yet I'm in that same position as a drug addict or as an alcoholic. I can't get work. I can't get a decent living wage. I mean, how is it fair? And where are my human rights in this country? So that's what it's about. We have to keep pushing for our values, and we have to keep pushing because there are Christian genocides that have taken place in the world. The Armenian genocides, different places, they have happened. And it's not to say that they can't happen again. There are beheadings that have been filmed and put on YouTube. So as Christians, we also have to stand up for our values and what we want. And not just say that, yeah, it's fine, the business comes first. The business is there to serve the community, not for us to just serve the business. There has to be a balance. And if someone like John Maxwell can put it in his book as a best-selling author on the New York Times about how discrimination is so blatant in the sports industry, then you must know it's real and it's happening today. It's not from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. It's now. It's happening now.